Yes, indeed. It is time for Tech Briefs here on Digital Trends Live, where me, Greg Nibbler, that's me. I am joined by Ken Young from Flipboard to catch you up on some of the biggest stories in technology from this past week. And there's a lot to talk about. As you can tell, I'm working from home. Ken's working from home, and a lot of companies are doing this. And what we are going to talk about here at the start is just how different companies are handling that. I mean, Twitter made an announcement this week that essentially their employees can work from home forever if they're able to. But then Apple is bringing employees back in, and then Google's doing something completely different. Ken, how are you handling this? Are you working from home for a while now?
So that's still undetermined for us. I think first we're largely constrained by the California's regulations, their quarantine rules, and also the San Francisco Bay Area's shelter in place. So regulations are starting to ease a little bit depending on which county you're in. So we're kind of waiting on further guidance from that. But overall, you can start to see some tech companies are starting to put together policies for what's going to happen post quarantine, not necessarily post pandemic, because who knows how long this is actually going to last. There's been health experts that saying that this could last for years, right? So whether or not we're waiting on a vaccine, whether or not we're waiting for contact tracing or whatever you believe in, like that's actually going to take a while. So everybody's just kind of but that's kind of indicative of where these companies are going. And let's talk specifically about tech companies, obviously, since this is a tech show. So as you mentioned, Twitter is saying, look, we're now letting our employees work from wherever they want, work from home permanently. That's kind of that's more of a unique situation that people previously hasn't thought about. You remember back when Marissa Mayer took over Yahoo, she put an end to the work from home policy, and so did IBM. So now this is kind of like a full 180 for just the tech industry itself. Google says that, look, we're not going to allow. We're going to permit employees not to come into the office, most employees not to come to the office for the rest of this year. Facebook, the same type of situation. Apple's, on the other hand, saying, look, we're going to gradually bring some people in. Now, this is not going to be 100% all employees are going to work from home, because there are going to be some that actually have to be in the office. And a lot of these tech companies are putting forth these plans saying, like, we're going to make sure that there's safer precautions. What those specifically are haven't been really noted. I mean, there's going to be more social distancing and a lot more hygiene, washing, those type of things. Even Salesforce says, look, we're going to allow people not to come into the office. But let's not also forget, like, this is largely benefiting full-time employees in the tech sector. But what about those that are contractors, those that need to be in the workforce, such as those like Amazon and warehouse workers, right? And also, how does this apply beyond Silicon Valley, and especially to those in businesses that typically are not allowed to, like those, like, let's look at Tesla, for example. Yeah. Tesla's reopened their Fremont plant against the wishes of the Alameda County government. So, but those employees had to go into the office in order to, those workers specifically, not those that are building the cars, not the full-time workers, had to be in the office. So this is not, everyone's kind of really going at it haphazardly, but because there's, as we know, that like, this coronavirus pandemic has really gotten everybody, there's no real hard and set rules.
Right. There's no template for how it happens, and that's why I think it's really interesting following these really big companies, like Twitter and Facebook and Apple and Google and Tesla even, and just what they do, because I do think whatever policies do end up working for them will trickle down to everybody else and every other kind of company as they follow their blueprints or follow, see what kind of mistakes they make and then go from there. But yeah, it's fascinating how this is all unrolling. And like you said, there's no templates. We just try to keep everybody up to date with it. And we've got a lot of articles too at Digital Trends and at Flipboard. There's tons of information on this. Going from there, something else that is feeling somewhat normal is that companies are still releasing products, which those aren't going on the regular probably schedule of how they normally would, but we are getting to see some new stuff. We had Apple, I believe it was last week, time has no meaning, I believe it was last week with the new MacBook, but now we had Dell this week releasing some new laptops as well that are actually pretty interesting releases from them. So it's the XPS line, which is usually very well reviewed, but it's going for the bigger ones. They have the XPS 15-inch, but then an XPS 17-inch, so 1 inch bigger than that new MacBook that came out, with some pretty good statistics on it as far as what it's capable of doing. There's a 4-core, 6-core, 8-core option, different options when it comes to the processing power, up to 64 gigs of RAM in this thing, which that's a lot of RAM. And it's also got an SSD starting at 256 gigs up to 2 terabytes. So it's a pretty beefy machine. And I think really, at least this was kind of the angle that Luke Larson, our computing editor, was talking about, was that this seems to be a shot at Apple to actually compete with that high-end new MacBook that came out.
Right, and certainly this is not going to be a cheap device, a cheap laptop. And I mean, this is priced, I believe, at starting around $1,500. And I mean, it's a hard pill to swallow, but when you look at the specs, it looks pretty impressive, and I'm very interested to see what Digital Trends how this reviews. And those that are looking for a new PC, a PC laptop, I mean, there's certainly no shortage of them. But in terms of high end, those that want something that will rival the MacBooks, the MacBook Pros in terms of actually doing hardcore creative stuff, whether it's videography, whether it's photography, whether it's just simple like content creation. Like, they're going to need something that's going to have a lot of power to it. And Dell has really put a lot of it into there. I mean, you look at the display and the power, as you mentioned, with the processor. This packs a punch to it. And right, we look at what happened recently with Apple announcing the new their 16-inch MacBook Pro, and then you look at last week where Microsoft just announced a huge line of their latest line of Surface devices, including the latest Surface Book and the Surface Go. So there's a lot of I mean, I don't think the pandemic's going to stop people wanting new technology. I think at some point when they're stuck at home and they're like, hey, we need to continue to work remotely, whatever your job is, whatever your role is, whatever you want to do, like, you're going to need that capability to do that. And this might be worth that investment to last you at least for the next, couple of years, if not longer.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. This is how we're working right now. And yeah, people are definitely going to be looking for more tech. And all these companies have made these products. And normally they would be releasing, depending on, I mean, maybe some of them are still on schedule, but they're definitely doing it in different ways because you can't have these events. And that kind of leads us to our next thing here with Microsoft, because we're going to get to look at our first major conference where it's launching online. So a lot of them, I mean, as we all know, were canceled or postponed indefinitely, but this is one that's actually going to happen next week, and it's for Microsoft's Build Conference, which is a huge developers conference that they have every year, where they sometimes introduce new products. They get all these developers on board with what they're doing, and it's going to be all digital, starting on May 19th and 20th, and it's going to be free for developers to be a part of it. But I'm looking at it, I mean, let's do a little bit of a preview, too, of what we expect from it, but also just from a technical standpoint, I'm interested on how they're going to pull it off, too.
Well, I think if look at last week, it was last week. I don't know. Time. I don't know what time.
Right.
What year is it? I don't know.
Yeah.
With Microsoft had their Inside Xbox event, right? Their Xbox 2020 event. That was supposed to. I believe that probably would have been something a little bit more in person. We talked about last week. That people want to have a lot of these conferences and events that we know about have an audience. So there's a lot of this feedback to do it, and people pay a lot of money to attend Microsoft Build. The same thing with Google I/O, Facebook's F8, Apple's WWDC, and everything like that. And of course, again, with the pandemic, everything's kind of gone kaput. So this is the first event that's kind of actually said that, look, we're canceling canceling this in-person event. We're going virtual and actually having an event, right? Google I/O was supposed to have canceled their in-person event, and then they were supposed to go virtual, and then they canceled that. Right, and same thing with Facebook's F8. So there's a lot of these companies that have said that they're trying to put on their events, but then they basically canceled it. Out of the safety of their employees and of the attendees. Makes total sense. With Microsoft Build, this is going to be the first event, that major tech event that we're going to see. So instead of 3 days, it's now 2 days. It's going to be all digital, all virtual. So those that anybody can watch it for free. You just have to register on their website. So you don't have to pay the ticket value. Those that actually, I think the first 5,000 people that actually registered and were paid attendees originally got like a small little swag bag type of thing. So they're treating people attendees right to a certain degree. But as you're gonna, you don't actually have to. Instead of what's notable is like Satya Nadella will still do a keynote, as well as all the other executives as well. But everything's all through some through Microsoft Teams or through live streams or whatnot. And it's instead of actually being like as a panel, it's all going to be through like a Zoom or Microsoft Teams type of an approach. So you're going to see everyone from their living room. So anyone want to place bets on what Satya Nadella's living room looks like when he gives a keynote about the latest stuff?
I want to see it.
I don't know, right? but here's what I'm looking forward to, right? Is like what's up with Microsoft's dual screen devices. They talked about last year their Surface Neo and Surface Duo. Where there's Surface Duo is the Android one. Is that supposed to come out this holiday? And same thing with Surface Neo. Is that supposed to come out at the holiday? There was reports that the Surface Neo, which is a Windows 10X based device, is maybe delayed because Windows 10X, instead of going for dual screen, now is going for it's going to be more of a Chrome OS competitor, based on reports, and could be further delayed because it's focusing just on single device, single display laptops. So who knows? Obviously, we'll probably see more things around AI, machine learning, Microsoft Azure, of course. A lot for developers. Same thing for Office 365. Will we see more things around HoloLens? Who knows? And it will be interesting.
I mean, it'd be cool.
Well, I mean, that'd be sure, but I don't know if they're necessarily going to have that. I mean, remember, this is just 2 days, and the keynotes, who knows how long those keynotes aren't going to be that long. But it's also interesting. One thing to kind of go back to is that the first day starts on a normal time around 9 o'clock or 9 o'clock Pacific, give or take. Second day, the first session actually starts at midnight Pacific. So this is like, but they run until like 8 or 9 o'clock at night. So, I mean, and of course these are all going to be recorded, so you can watch it whenever you want. But I mean, it's catered for anybody who wants to
definitely
watch
catering to that global audience for it. I would certainly think that's where that's going for. Yeah, it'll whatever comes out of it. I mean, hopefully we get to see some new products just on that side of things. I would love to hear some updates on exactly what you're talking about, the Duo or HoloLens or anything like that, or at least what they're bringing to developers to start developing for it. Maybe showcase another another possible rendering of what the product could be. Anything's exciting at this point, but also just how they do pull it off. If it's all pre-recorded, if they do anything live, again, we'll have to see because there's a lot of other events that are coming up that are going to be, all online as well. So this being the first one, we'll have to see what they get right, what they get wrong. But definitely fascinating. I'm sure we'll be talking about it next week on Tech Briefs, whatever comes out of it. And as we always do here, keeping people up to date, I want to remind everybody we do have the podcast that you can hit subscribe to. So that wherever you get your podcasts, just go to Tech Briefs and hit subscribe to that too. And we will keep you up to date on everything. Ken, as always, good to talk to you, my friend. And we will talk to you next week.
See you next week.